So, what's a Black Swan event? Who wants to field that question?
I'll jump into this one. So the title of the Black Swan event is most often attributed to Nicholas Nassim Taleb.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's both an economist. He's a professor. He's an author. He's kind of one of those autophages. He's accomplished many things. But he wrote a book called The Black Swan. And the idea of a Black Swan event is it is a large event, a large catastrophic, or a large event of very effective proportions, whatever, that either A, could not have been predicted, or B, if it would have been predicted, it wouldn't have happened and therefore would never have been noticed. And so when he opens up, I think it's when he opens up his book, The Black Swan, he's using the example of 9/11. So if anybody in the airports had said, it's strange that these people have these items and just simply taken them, then there would have been no 9/11.
Interesting.
Right?
No one would have been batted an eye.
And no one would have heard. They wouldn't have been promoted. They wouldn't have been made into generals or heroes. It was just like all of these little things had to happen in a row where it ended up in a catastrophe that no one predicted.
It's a cascading failure.
Yeah,
right.
I'm not going to use the word cascading failure because I'm not going to be specific on that one. But you might be correct in the sense of that one where.
Well, there's that story of it's Jose Melendez Perez was the one TSA agent who had been, I think he was a Puerto Rican, served in I think Vietnam, and he was the one who stopped Mohammed al-Qatani, who was supposedly the 20th hijacker. From coming through in Florida, and because I always remember the story because it was like he just says like he seemed off to me, right? This guy got put in secondary screening, and because he wasn't able to answer the questions when you come in, hey, where are you going, how long you staying, when are you flying back, didn't have good answers to the questions, gets put into secondary screening, and then Jose Melendez Perez goes to see him and says, look, this guy's got military training. I can see he's got like a military bearing to him. And you kind of know if you've been in the military, like, hey, this guy's got, and something seems off. His story seems off. He doesn't have a return ticket. And then they pulled him aside and they said, hey, man, this guy's a Saudi. You got to be PC. You got to be careful. And Melendez Perez says, I don't care. This guy, everything that I'm supposed to do says this guy shouldn't be allowed into the United States, so I'm going to send him home. And he did send him home, and he was supposed to be the muscle man for United 93. So that's why United 93 only had 4 hijackers as opposed to the others that had 5. And he was supposed to be one that was doing crowd control for the passengers as the other guys flew. Wow. And then what Melendez Perez didn't know was that waiting to pick up Mohammed al-Qatani in the parking lot of the airport in Florida was Mohammed Atta, who was the lead hijacker. Because one guy just did what he was supposed to do, just did his job.
So here's why I ask. From the New York Post. Palantir buys $50 million worth of gold bars to counter Black Swan event.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So what does Palantir do?
So Palantir is, they're like a database of databases, if that makes sense, right? So they are a software which allows for database integration, and think of, I know this from the Intel community using it, and that's where I was able to get my fingers on the Palantir system. But you really use it for any large data set. I know this is Wall Street's starting to use it more. Pharmaceutical companies are starting to use it more. Any of these massive data sets. And it's basically like, you think of any like online database where you're going through files and then things are linked to each other. Well, it's multimedia, and one thing can pop up to another. It's all tied together. You can do aggregation. They are and a Palantir, of course, is from Lord of the Rings, and it's the seer. It's kind of like Ian's. You got a little, that's Ian's Palantir right there, right?
Hold this up.
There it is. There it is.
Yeah, there it is. He literally has a crystal ball in front of him.
It's a crystal ball, right? The idea is like
it's Lord of the Rings FaceTime.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
Perfect. Yeah.
It's what who was it? Was it Mary or Pippin? They saw it and they grabbed it in the movie.
Pippin.
Yeah.
Was it Pippin?
Yep.
So the Colorado-based company purchased $50.7 million worth of 100-ounce gold bars sometime in August. Palantir said in a short note buried in its 93-page second quarter earnings report last week. The company previously announced that it would accept Bitcoin as a form of payment, though it hasn't said that it's invested in any Bitcoin yet, unlike some other companies, including Elon Musk's electric car firm Tesla. What do they?
Well, and Palantir is it's Peter Thiel.
Oh, I know, but I'm saying,
I don't
like,
know if we said it, just
what's
so
the
people don't know.
what's the Black Swan event that they're seeing? They have all this data. They're the Sears Stone, and they're like, we think we need $50 million in 100-ounce gold bars.
Yeah.
I saw a meme where they were, what did they say?
And they're not like the guys on TV saying, buy gold.
Right.
William Devane, buy gold.
When Sauron is buying gold, you have to wonder
Right.
what's going on.
What does Sauron know?
Yeah. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Is it?
It's economic. They're hedging against economic inflation.
Is that all you think? It's
That's it. They know it's coming. It's
So,
it's gonna be magnitude.
But that's not a Black Swan event.
One conversation
Expected.
Hamburger's
combined
$70. That would be Black Swan.
One conversation, sort of a meta conversation I've been having with a few people, offline lately is if you just look, like if you take the last 5 years worth of events and you kind of put them all together, but you look at them from, go through the mental exercise of going 20 years in the future and then looking back. These last 5 years, just the amount of upheaval and the quickness and speed with which events have transpired, it sort of feels like the preface to something, right? It almomost feels like you're reading, this is the backstory of which led us up to the event.
It kind of feels like you're on a roller coaster and it's the clinks are going slower and slower. Tink, 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 tink.
Right.
No.
Tink, tink,
Right.
tink.
Are you sitting in the front or in the back of the roller coaster?
Always a front.
I'm in the front, 100%.
You gotta see.
100%.
You can't
Yeah,
see.
Sit
That's the
behind
point.
you guys.
Yeah, I want to know.
Yeah, I want to watch.
Let's see what's
It's
going
a
on.
good view.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a big roller coaster person though. It's kind of boring.
Peter Thiel's heavily invested in like Bitcoin marketplaces and stuff.
So what is this, Ian? You're saying you think that it's going to be an economic
Shock
drop
to the system. There's going to be a magnitude of cost inflation, like times 10. That's what magnitudes are.
No, we're
Orders of
already
10.
seeing it. We're already seeing it.
We're going to
They-
see things that cost $6 cost 60. It's going to be absolute
That would
madness.
be insane. I don't know.
gonna
Do
be-
you guys agree?
Well, I mean that makes sense as to why they were, because I mean from what you're
Why
saying,
they're buying
that's
gold.
why they're buying gold, right? Because
Yeah.
it's yes, there's a Black Swan event, but it'll be tied to economics. It'll be, and obviously you would buy gold as a hedge against fiat. So the idea that now it may also be though that they're not quite sold on crypto yet, and they're thinking that look, we kind of went through the pandemic and there were times where crypto seemed like people were using it as a store of value, but other times where it seemed like it was crashing along with the stock market because there's a lot of speculation in crypto as well.
Yeah.
And so that's not a knock crypto Twitter, by the way, to all the crypto bros out there. But I'm just talking about how it went last year. And so you've got to think that from Palantir's perspective, they want to go with the more traditional store of value that people have run to in a crisis, and that's gold.
What would be a
Precious
black
metals.
What would be a Black Swan event that would hit the economy in such a way that they would need $50 million of gold bars?
They could print $120 trillion
But
tomorrow.
Right. But is that a Black Swan event?
It would create a Black Swan
Does
event.
that make sense?
No, you make a good point. Would the printing of $100 trillion be the cause of the Black Swan event, or would it be the event itself?
Good call. Because was 9/11, was it the response to the buildings coming down that was the real Black Swan event, like the war? Or was it the actual building? How do you define?
Was it the fact? Well, maybe I think in that one would be, was the Black Swan event at the thing that contributed to what we call the Black Swan event of 9/11 was the towers coming down. But the things that contributed to that are all of the subsequent or all the preceding events that no one predicted. No one thought anyone was going to hijack a personnel carrier.
Well,
And crash it.
actually,
So maybe the formation of the
Theoretically.
Federal
they
Reserve was
actually.
the Black Swan event.
I'm pretty sure they had done drills specifically mentioning this. It's been a long time since I've read a lot of the news, but I just mean to say that it was a failure on the part of the government, and it's kind of like when
Certainly hijackings had taken place.
well, yeah, but it's when Biden says we plan for every contingency. We know they didn't.
No, you didn't.
Right.
Yeah,
And when they
absolutely
said
not.
I think it was like, I don't know, who was it, Condoleezza Rice at the time? Like, who could have predicted they would do this? It's like the U.S. did. Not specifically, but they knew that planes could be used as weapons.
Look at this last weekend in Afghanistan. That was a Black Swan event because we're like, okay, well, anybody who's been there has some expectation that as America recedes, somebody's going to fill that void. And if it's not the Afghan military, the Afghan government at the time, it's going to be somebody else. And who is that going to be? It's obviously going to be the Taliban. We just did not expect it. The Black Swan event was that they precipitated on across the country so quickly. And so that's kind of the multiple layers of failures of the relationships with the local people, not on the individual level, but on the state level. And are we looking at this social investment in the country and taking it seriously? We're like, no.
So I read a bit about Afghanistan and what I can't remember. I don't know who wrote this. They said that the U.S. pulled air support. And as soon as that happened, that's the centerpiece of American military strategy. So they give the Afghan security forces, these air capabilities, but then Biden's like, we're pulling support and we're out.
Well, there was actually an interesting, and it kind of ties into what you're saying. There was an interesting angle to that because it was something along the lines of, and I don't want to get this wrong, but the idea was that we were maintaining the Afghan Air Force, and they didn't have the capacity to, there I am using buzzwords, capacity, capacity to maintain their own Air Force. So when we pulled our contractors and essentially our mechanics for their Air Force, rather than having, it's like, Lydia, it's like you teach a man to fish, right? That the minute we pulled those mechanics out, they didn't have an Air Force anymore.
Is that because in the 20-year training that we were training militants, but not engineers?
Well, we were training the arm. I mean, I won't put words in your mouth, but we were training armed forces. It wasn't
not mechanics though.
I was not. I was in Ranger Battalion. I was not in charge of understanding the relationship.
Why didn't you train them better, Forrest? Come on, man.
Because
they
never taught me how to. Please, it's very clear.
They never taught me how to fly a helicopter.
Everything we've seen is Forrest's fault.
It's obviously
we
all
figured it out.
It's
not Biden. It's not Trump. Not Bush.
You have discovered what the Department of State thinks.
Yes, exactly.
It's not our policies.
Exactly.
It's the guy on the ground. His
the guy on the
sideburns are
ground's
too
fault.
long.
Yeah, exactly.
He lost.
So, but here's my question.
His gas mask cannot be properly fitted.
Well, here's
shaved.
Here's my question to you, Forrest.
Yeah.
Could we have withdrawn in such a way that Afghanistan would not have fallen to the Taliban in 3 days?
Yeah, absolutely. And that problem would have started maybe 10 years ago. Because we didn't plan for... When did we start planning to pull out of Afghanistan legitimately? Like, how long was it just an eventually thing? We'll do it.
Right.
Well, we're going to leave. We have to leave. We have to figure out the terms on which we're going to leave. Maybe us... We who are seen as the powers that be, the generals, are like, well, we're only willing to pull out when it looks good for my political career.
Yeah.
That you think that's not a thing? Like, absolutely.
Of course.
Oh no.
Well, that's what you saw that thing from Matt Zeller, where he was on MSNBC and he said that he told them over and over again, plan for this, but they were more concerned about looking bad than actually solving, planning for the problem. And now they look bad because of it.
Yeah. Well, plus you got guys who, and I'm sure you know this dynamic well. It's, hey, we can't pull out now. I got a deployment coming up. I just finished my training. We're all ready to go. We're about to do this. I'm about to make rank. So this is the last time. This is my chance to be in the hot seat on deployment. I'm not going to skip my deployment. I'm going.
No one wants to be a tabbed ranger who went overseas, or who never got to go overseas.
Never.
And has to go home and visit his family and run into his uncle, who's annoying as possible, who was in the National Guard and has got 3 deployments under his belt.
Exactly. No, that's 100% true. But it's that mentality that drives a lot of this decision making too.
I think it has influence on it. I wouldn't consider it a root cause. I think it has. I think it's a symptom, not a cause.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.